King Tharos's hands trembled as he pressed the button to send his desperate plea across the stars to the humans of Earth. The proud Ocampa race teetered on the precipice of extinction, their once mighty civilization crumbling under the merciless assault of the Ulians. Tharos had exhausted every option, every strategy, every weapon in his arsenal, but nothing could stem the tide of the enemy's relentless advance. Now, in a final act of desperation, he turned to the humans, a primitive, violent species known more for their internal strife than their tactical prowess. The Ocampa had long dismissed Earth as a backwater planet, its inhabitants little more than savages. But with his people's fate hanging in the balance, Tharos swallowed his pride and begged for aid. Light years away, Noah Morgan, battle-hardened commander of the Shadow Wolves, Earth's most elite soldiers, read the alien king's plea with a mix of skepticism and intrigue. The message spoke of an advanced civilization on the brink of annihilation, of a chance for humanity to prove its mettle on a galactic stage. Morgan saw an opportunity not just to save the Ocampa, but to secure humanity's place in the cosmos. Convincing his superiors to seize this chance, Morgan assembled a team of Earth's finest warriors, each possessing unique skills and an iron will to succeed where the Ocampa had failed. As the super soldiers trained, Morgan knew the fate of both races rested on their shoulders. The stage was set for a clash of technologies and cultures, primitive humans against a foe even the advanced Ocampa could not defeat. The galaxy watched, breath held, to see if humanity would rise to the challenge or be consigned to the footnotes of history. The Shadow Wolves departed Earth, hurtling across the stars to answer King Tharos's call, to fight, to win, or to die trying. In a secret facility hidden deep within the Earth's mountains, Commander Noah Morgan surveyed the assembled warriors before him. These men and women, hand-picked from the ranks of Earth's elite, stood ready to face an alien foe that had already brought the advanced Ocampa civilization to its knees. Among them, Sergeant Jack Reacher caught Morgan's eye, a living legend known for his unorthodox methods and unwavering willpower. As the training began, Morgan watched the human soldiers struggle to adapt to the sophisticated Ocampan technology. Plasma rifles and energy shields felt foreign in their hands, a stark contrast to the primitive weapons they had mastered on Earth's battlefields. Frustration mounted as the warriors grappled with the advanced equipment, their movements clumsy and uncertain. General Zalos, Morgan's Ocampan counterpart, observed the human struggles with a mix of concern and fascination. He had seen firsthand the devastation wrought by the Ulians, and knew that these primitive soldiers represented the Ocampa's last hope. Zalos approached Morgan, his voice low. "Your warriors have heart, Commander, but heart alone will not defeat the Ulians." Morgan met the general's gaze, perseverance etched in the lines of his face. "They'll adapt. They have to." As the days turned into weeks, the human soldiers began to find their footing. Under the guidance of Morgan and Zalos, they learned to wield the Ocampan weapons with growing proficiency. Reacher, in particular, seemed to thrive in the challenging environment, his natural aptitude for combat shining through as he mastered the alien technology. But even as the humans grew more adept, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Late at night, huddled around campfires, the soldiers shared stories of the lives they had left behind on Earth. They spoke of families, of loved ones who might never know the sacrifices they were making. In those moments, the vast differences between human and Ocampan seemed to melt away, replaced by a shared understanding of the weight they carried. As the time for deployment drew near, Morgan found himself standing beside General Zalos, looking out over the training grounds. The Ocampan turned to him, his expression somber. "You know what awaits us out there, Commander. The Ulianses will not be easily defeated." Morgan nodded, his mind focused. "We'll give them a fight they'll never forget. These soldiers, my soldiers, they're the best humanity has to offer. And with your technology and knowledge, we might just stand a chance." The two leaders clasped hands, a gesture of unity between two races brought together by desperate circumstances. As the sun set over the mountains, the human super soldiers prepared to embark on a mission that would determine not just the fate of the Ocampa, but the future of humanity itself. They had trained, they had bled, and now they would face the ultimate test, a primitive species against an advanced alien foe, with the galaxy watching to see if they would rise to the challenge or be forever consigned to the footnotes of history. As the human super soldiers embarked on their perilous journey through the star-strewn void, the weight of their mission settled upon their shoulders like a tangible force. Commander Noah Morgan stood on the bridge of the sleek Ocampan starship, his eyes fixed on the monitor displaying the endless expanse of space before them. Beside him, Sergeant Jack Reacher checked and rechecked his plasma rifle, a quiet intensity etched into his chiseled features. The journey was arduous, fraught with the challenges of navigating unfamiliar star systems and the ever-present threat of Ulians's ambushes. The human warriors, accustomed to the gravity and atmosphere of Earth, had to adapt quickly to the foreign environment of deep space travel. They trained relentlessly in the ship's advanced combat simulators, honing their skills with the Ocampan weapons and technology. As they drew closer to the besieged Ocampan homeworld, the signs of war became increasingly evident. Debris fields littered the once pristine space lanes, the remnants of shattered ships and broken dreams. Morgan's heart grew heavy as he witnessed the destruction wrought by the Ulians firsthand. Upon reaching the Ocampan system, the human force was immediately thrust into the heart of the conflict. The scene that greeted them was one of utter devastation. Entire cities lay in ruins, their once proud spires reduced to rubble. The remnants of the Ocampan fleet, a mere shadow of its former might, limped through the skies, battered and scarred from countless battles. King Theros, his regal bearing tempered by the weight of prolonged war, welcomed the human warriors with a mix of relief and trepidation. His eyes, haunted by the losses his people had endured, held a glimmer of hope as he beheld the determined faces of the human soldiers. At his side stood Princess Arya, a fierce and capable leader whose unwavering purpose had been instrumental in the Ocampan resistance efforts. As the human soldiers integrated with the remaining Ocampan forces, a sense of unity and purpose began to take hold. Commander Morgan and Sergeant Reacher worked closely with King Theros and Princess Arya, their minds racing as they developed a strategic plan that would leverage the unique strengths of both human and Ocampan combatants. The humans' unorthodox tactics and raw combat prowess meshed seamlessly with the Ocampan's advanced technology and intimate knowledge of the enemy's weaknesses. The joint force wasted no time in launching a series of daring strikes against Ulians's outposts and supply lines. The human super soldiers, their reflexes honed to a razor's edge, moved with a fluid grace as they engaged the enemy in close-quarters combat. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, illuminating the battlefields with an eerie glow as the humans and Ocampans fought side by side. Sergeant Reacher, his eyes blazing with persistence, led the charge in many of these engagements. His unorthodox methods and unwavering willpower inspired his fellow soldiers, human and Ocampan alike. They marveled at his resilience and adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds, his bravery a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. As the campaign progressed, the human Ocampan alliance began to make headway against the Ulians's invaders. Each victory, hard-fought and dearly won, bolstered their willpower and strengthened the bonds between the two disparate peoples. The humans' indomitable spirit and tenacity earned them the respect and admiration of their Ocampan allies, forging a camaraderie that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. Yet even as they savored these triumphs, the specter of greater challenges loomed on the horizon. The Ulians, sensing the growing threat posed by the human Ocampan alliance, redoubled their efforts to crush the resistance. Whispers of genetically engineered Ulians super soldiers, bred for combat and unwavering in their loyalty, began to circulate among the ranks. These formidable adversaries represented a new and terrifying obstacle, one that would test the mettle of even the most seasoned human warriors. Amidst the chaos and carnage of war, unexpected bonds began to form between the human and Ocampan soldiers. Sergeant Reacher, his heart stirred by the fierce drive and unwavering commitment of Princess Arya, found himself inexorably drawn to her. In the quiet moments between battles, a mutual respect and admiration blossomed, the seeds of something more taking root in the fertile soil of shared purpose and sacrifice. As news of the human super soldiers' exploits reached Earth, transmitted across the vast distances of space, A groundswell of support and pride surged through the planet's population. The public rallied behind their brave compatriots, viewing them as heroes and symbols of humanity's potential on the galactic stage. Additional resources and reinforcements were hastily dispatched, a tangible manifestation of Earth's unwavering commitment to the cause. But even as hope bloomed anew, an ominous intelligence reached the ears of Commander Morgan and King Theros. The Ulians, in a final bid for victory, were massing their forces for a devastating assault on the Ocampan capital. The fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance, and the human super soldiers steeled themselves for the battle that would define their legacy. With the eyes of two worlds upon them, the joint human Ocampan force prepared for the confrontation that would shape the future of not only the Ocampa, but also the role of humanity in the greater galactic community. The stage was set, the pieces in motion, and the universe held its breath as the primitive and the advance, the human and the alien, stood shoulder to shoulder against the coming storm. The human Ocampan alliance surged forward, their combined might focused on reclaiming Altara. Commander Noah Morgan and King Theros stood side by side on the command bridge, orchestrating the assault with measured precision. Below, Sergeant Jack Reacher and Princess Arya led the vanguard, their forces cutting through Ulian's defenses like a plasma blade through hull plating. Weeks of grueling urban warfare followed. The Allied forces pushed block by block, street by street, until finally the Ulians' grip on Altara began to slip. As the last pockets of resistance crumbled, a triumphant cheer echoed through the city's war-torn streets. Their victory was short-lived. In the midst of celebration, a thunderous explosion rocked the central plaza. Confusion reigned as Ocampan troops turned their weapons on their human allies. At the center of the chaos stood General Cravon, his face twisted in a sneer of contempt. "For the true Ocampa!" he bellowed, signaling his conspirators to attack. Reacher's instincts kicked in as he dove for cover, pulling Princess Arya down with him. Plasma bolts sizzled overhead as the plaza erupted into a maelstrom of betrayal and violence. King Theros' eyes widened in disbelief. "Cravon, why—" His words were cut short as Cravon's forces opened fire. Morgan reacted instantly, tackling the king to the ground. But he wasn't fast enough. A stray bolt caught Theros in the chest, and he crumpled, his royal robes staining crimson. "Father!" Arya's anguished cry cut through the din of battle. Reacher grabbed her arm, his voice urgent. "We need to move, now." With practiced efficiency, the human forces regrouped, covering their retreat as they extracted the wounded king and shell-shocked princess. Morgan barked orders into his comms, coordinating their withdrawal from the city they had fought so hard to liberate. As they fled Altara, the bitter taste of defeat mixed with the acrid smoke of burning buildings. The humans' trust in their alien allies lay shattered like the ruins of the capital. Days later, aboard their orbiting command ship, King Theros lay on his deathbed. His once regal form was now frail, ravaged by his wounds. Morgan stood at his side, his face a mask of stoic concern. Theros' voice was barely a whisper. "I was wrong about your people, Commander. Your potential, it exceeds anything we could have imagined." He gripped Morgan's hand with surprising strength. "You must not abandon this fight. The Ulians, they will consume everything if left unchecked." The king's gaze drifted to where Arya stood, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "My daughter, she will need guidance. Until she comes of age, I name you Regent Protector of our people." With a final shuddering breath, King Theros closed his eyes and was still. In the somber days that followed, Sergeant Reacher threw himself into uncovering the full extent of Cravon's betrayal. His investigation led him to a chilling discovery. Cravon had allied himself with Warlord Zyrax, the Ulians' most brilliant and ruthless military strategist. Reacher's face was grim as he delivered his report to Morgan and Arya. "This Zyrax, he's not like the others we've faced. The intelligence suggests he's crushed entire civilizations without breaking a sweat." Morgan's eyes hardened. "Then we'll just have to be smarter, faster, and more unpredictable than ever before." As they began to formulate their next move, the weight of their new reality settled upon them. The battle for Altara had been lost, But the war for the galaxy's future was not nearly finished. With humanity's ingenuity and the Ocampan's technology, they would face this new threat head-on, whatever it takes. The shattered remnants of the human Ocampan alliance retreated to a hidden lunar base on one of the system's outer moons. Commander Noah Morgan stood before a holographic display, his face etched with lines of exhaustion and worry as he surveyed the tactical readouts. "We've lost Altura," he said, his voice tight. "But we haven't lost the war." Beside him, Princess Arya nodded grimly. Her royal attire had been replaced by a practical combat suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. The weight of leadership sat heavily on her young shoulders. "My father believed in this alliance," she said. "I won't let his sacrifice be in vain." As they strategized, Sergeant Jack Reacher burst into the command center, his uniform stained with grime and sweat. "Commander, we've got a situation. I've uncovered evidence of Ullian's infiltrators within our ranks." Morgan's eyes narrowed. "Cravon's work, no doubt. How deep does it go?" "Deep enough to be a serious problem," Reacher replied. "But I've got a plan to smoke them out." Over the next few days, Reacher led a series of lightning-fast raids on suspected Ullian strongholds. His strike team moved with practiced precision, gathering crucial intelligence on Cravon's network of spies and saboteurs. Meanwhile, Princess Arya faced her own battles in the political arena. A group of Ocampan officials, led by the venerable Counselor Varin, challenged her authority. "You are too young, too inexperienced," Varin declared during a tense meeting, "and your reliance on these humans is dangerous folly." Arya stood tall, her voice steady. "My father saw the potential in this alliance. I have seen it firsthand. The humans have bled for us, fought for us. They are our best hope for survival." With careful maneuvering and impassioned speeches, Arya outflanked her opponents. She exposed Varin's ties to Cravon, turning the tide of opinion in her favor and cementing her position as leader. As Reacher's team continued to disrupt Cravon's operations, Morgan focused on finding a way to counter the tactical genius of Warlord Xerax. He recruited a team of brilliant Ocampan scientists, led by the eccentric but brilliant Dr. Elon. "We need to find a pattern, a weakness we can exploit," Morgan explained, gesturing to the mountain of data before them. Dr. Elon's eyes lit up with excitement. "Oh yes, every strategy has its flaws. We just need to dig deep enough to find them." Days turned into weeks as they pored over battle reports and strategic analyses. Just when it seemed their efforts were in vain, a young scientist named Tala made a breakthrough. "Look at this," she exclaimed, pointing to a seemingly unremarkable star system. "In every campaign, Xerax leaves this area lightly defended. It's small, strategically unimportant, but what if it's more crucial than it appears?" Morgan studied the data, a plan forming in his mind. "This could be our chance. If we can seize control of this system, we might just throw Xerax off balance." With Arya's backing, Morgan put his audacious plan into motion. The human Ocampan fleet, bolstered by advanced cloaking technology, slipped past Ullian's sensor nets and struck at the heart of the unassuming star system. The battle was swift and decisive. Caught completely off guard, the Ullian's garrison crumbled before the onslaught. Within hours, the system was under human Ocampan control. As reports of the unexpected victory filtered in, Morgan allowed himself a small smile. "Now we've got Xerax's attention. Let's see how he handles a real challenge." But even as they celebrated this hard-won victory, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Xerax, enraged by this unforeseen defeat, was marshaling his forces for a massive counterattack. The true test of the human Ocampan alliance was yet to come. The star system's sun pulsed ominously as Commander Morgan surveyed the tactical display. Beside him, Princess Arya's eyes narrowed, focused on the approaching Ullian's armada. "They're here," she said, her voice taut. Morgan nodded, activating the comm. "All units, execute Operation Solar Flare." Across the system, strategically placed explosives detonated, destabilizing the volatile star. Massive solar eruptions lashed out, engulfing the vanguard of Xerax's fleet. Ships disintegrated in the cosmic inferno, their hulls peeling away like paper in a furnace. Xerax's enraged voice crackled over the comms. Press forward! Crush them! The remaining Ullian ships surged ahead, only to be met by a swarm of unmanned drones. Human combat AI merged seamlessly with Ocampan virtual intelligence, creating a hive mind of destruction. The drones danced through enemy formations, their weapons finding weak points with uncanny precision. On the bridge of the Ullian's command ship, Warlord Xyrax snarled in frustration. "Deploy the heavy mechs, we'll grind them to dust." Massive war machines erupted from Ullian's carriers, their metal frames overflowing with weaponry. They lumbered toward the human Ocampan defensive line, shrugging off conventional fire. Sergeant Reacher's voice came through Morgan's earpiece. "We're in position, Commander." "Execute," Morgan ordered. Deep within the Ullian's command ship, Reacher's strike team moved with silent efficiency. They located the mech control center and struck. Plasma charges melted through security doors, and precision shots disabled the control interfaces. In space, the mechs suddenly lurched, their movements becoming erratic. A squadron of Ocampan fighters, led by Princess Arya herself, pounced. They wove through the confused mechs, disabling them with pinpoint attacks. "Now, Hail Mary," Arya commanded. A sleek black ship materialized from seemingly nowhere. At its controls sat Hail Mary, Arya's secret weapon. The human Ocampan hybrid pilot pushed her experimental craft to its limits, dancing through the chaotic battlefield. She lined up her shot on Xyrax's flagship. Ion cannon charged and ready. "Fire!" Morgan and Arya said in unison. A blast of crackling energy lanced out, striking the Ullian's vessel. Systems across the ship flickered and died, leaving it dead in space. Xyrax's furious roar echoed across all frequencies. "This isn't over! I'll reduce your worlds to ash!" As the remnants of the Ullian's fleet retreated, Morgan allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, but it was short-lived. "New contacts incoming," an Ocampan sensor operator reported. "It's General Cravon's forces." Morgan's fists tight. So the traitor shows his face at last. Unknown to them, Cravon's ships carried a deadly cargo, a bioweapon engineered to target Ocampan DNA. As the victorious human Ocampan fleet regrouped, Cravon prepared to unleash his final betrayal. Morgan turned to Arya, his eyes hard. "We've won the battle, but Xyrax and Cravon are still out there. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Arya nodded, her face set with tenacity. "Then let's prepare. We'll face them together, whatever they throw at us." As they began planning their next move, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see how this cosmic drama would unfold. The stars blazed with the light of 1,000 explosions as Warlord Xyrax's armada emerged from warp. Commander Noah Morgan's eyes hardened as he surveyed the tactical display, the sheer number of enemy ships filling the screen. "This is it," he said, his voice steady. "Execute Operation Guillotine." Princess Arya nodded, her fingers flying over the control panel. "Sending the signal now." Half of Morgan's fleet surged forward, engines flaring as they charged toward the Ullian's forces. Xyrax took the bait, his ships spreading out to envelope the seemingly suicidal attack. "Now, Arya!" Morgan barked. The princess activated the experimental Ocampan weather control satellites. The void of space lit up as massive arcs of energy crackled between the devices, coalescing into a swirling vortex of charged particles. On the bridge of his flagship, Xyrax's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible! All ships! Evasive maneuver—" His words were cut short as the artificial ion storm engulfed his fleet. Ullian ships tumbled helplessly, their systems overloaded by the electromagnetic maelstrom. Morgan's comm crackled to life. "This is Admiral Briggs. The cavalry has arrived." A new wave of human ships dropped out of warp, their weapons already charging. Morgan allowed himself a grim smile. "Welcome to the party, Admiral. Let's finish this." The combined human Ocampan fleet descended upon the crippled Ullian's armada. Plasma torpedoes and energy beams lanced out, tearing through disabled ships. Xyrax's remaining forces rallied, but they were outmatched and outmaneuvered at every turn. Aboard the Ocampan flagship, Sergeant Jack Reacher strapped himself into a drop pod. "Strike team ready for deployment," he reported. "You have a go," Morgan's voice came through. "Good hunting, Sergeant." The pod streaked across space, slamming into the hull of Xyrax's flagship. Reacher burst out, plasma rifle at the ready. His team moved with practiced efficiency, cutting through the ship's defenders. They fought their way to the bridge, where Xyrax himself awaited them. The Ulian's warlord sneered, activating a hidden control panel. "You're too late, humans. If I can't have victory, I'll settle for taking you with me." A countdown appeared on every screen. The ship's self-destruct sequence initiated. Reacher's team scattered, searching for the device. The sergeant himself faced off against Xyrax, their battle a blur of strikes and counterstrikes. Reacher's combat augmentations gave him an edge, but the Ulian's warlord was a seasoned killer. As they grappled, Reacher spotted the self-destruct device. With a burst of superhuman strength, he hurled Xyrax across the room. The sergeant lunged for the device, his fingers dancing across its surface as he input the disarm sequence. The countdown froze with seconds to spare. Reacher exhaled, then turned to the groaning Xyrax. "It's over, warlord. You've lost." Back on the Ocampan homeworld, the celebrations were cut short by a new threat. General Cravon's ships descended upon the cities, releasing clouds of sickly green gas. Hail Mary, Arya's hybrid bodyguard, piloted her experimental craft through the chaos. She weaved between buildings, her ship's systems dispensing the cure to the bioweapon in a fine mist. "I've covered the eastern quadrant," she reported. "Moving to the north now." Cravon's voice boomed over the city's communication channels. "You may have stopped Xyrax, but the Ocampan race will still fall." As Hail Mary raced to distribute the cure, Cravon's forces engaged in vicious street-to-street fighting with the loyalist Ocampans. The general himself slipped away in the confusion, a handful of renegade soldiers at his side. Hours later, the battle was over. The Allied forces had prevailed, but at a terrible cost. Morgan and Arya stood atop a ruined building, surveying the devastation. "We won," Arya said softly, "but at what price?" Morgan placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll rebuild, together." As the sun set on the ravaged Ocampan world, the work of reconstruction was already beginning. But somewhere in the vastness of space, General Cravon plotted his revenge, ensuring that the hard-won peace would be short-lived. Short-lived. The celebration on the Ocampan homeworld faded as quickly as it had begun. Commander Noah Morgan stood before a hastily assembled war council, his face grim as he delivered the news. "General Cravon has established a stronghold on Carrick," he said, gesturing to a holographic display of the remote Ocampan colony. "Intelligence suggests he's gathering followers, disgruntled soldiers and civilians who oppose our alliance." Newly appointed Regent Admiral Marcus Briggs leaned forward, his weathered face etched with concern. "How many?" "Enough to pose a significant threat," Morgan replied. "We need to act quickly before this insurrection gains momentum." Princess Arya, her eyes sharp with grit, spoke up. "We can't allow Cravon to undo everything we've fought for. What's our strategy?" As Morgan outlined his plan for a surgical strike against Cravon's forces, murmurs of dissent rippled through the Ocampan contingent. Counselor Varen, his face twisted with barely concealed contempt, stood. "Enough of this human warmongering," he spat. "We should seek a diplomatic solution with our own kind, not send more of our people to die at the behest of off-worlders." The room erupted into heated debate. Morgan exchanged a weary glance with Arya, both acutely aware of the fragile nature of their hard-won alliance. Meanwhile, in the depths of a military compound, Sergeant Jack Reacher methodically cleaned his plasma rifle. His mind replayed Cravon's betrayal on an endless loop, each iteration fueling a smoldering rage. A shadow fell across him. Reacher looked up to see Hail Mary, Arya's enigmatic hybrid bodyguard. "The princess requests your presence," she said, her voice low and musical. Moments later, Reacher stood before Arya in her private chambers. The princess's eyes blazed with an intensity that matched his own. "I know what you're planning, Sergeant," she said without preamble. "You're going after Cravon." Reacher's eyes sharp. With all due respect, Your Highness, I don't know what you're talking about. Arya's lips quirked in a humorless smile. Save it, Reacher. I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to help. She activated a holographic display showing detailed schematics of Carrick's defenses. This is everything we know about Cravon's stronghold. Take it, and take this. She handed him a small, innocuous-looking device. It'll get you past any Ocampan security measures. Reacher's eyes widened slightly. Princess, if anyone found out— They won't, Arya cut him off. Now go. End this. Hours later, Reacher's infiltration team slipped through Carrick's atmosphere, their stealth shuttle cloaked against detection. As they touched down in a desolate canyon miles from Cravon's base, Reacher addressed his hand-picked squad. This is off the books, he said, his voice low and intense. Command doesn't know we're here. We're on our own. Our mission is simple. Find Cravon and eliminate him. Any questions? Silence greeted him. Each member of the team knew the stakes, knew the price of failure. They moved out under the cover of darkness, their augmented vision piercing the gloom. As they approached the outskirts of Cravon's compound, a prickle of unease crawled up Reacher's spine. It's too quiet, he muttered. Suddenly, alarms blared. Spotlights snapped on, bathing them in harsh light. Cravon's voice boomed from hidden speakers, dripping with smug satisfaction. Welcome, Sergeant Reacher. I've been expecting you. Plasma fire erupted from concealed emplacements. Reacher's team scrambled for cover, returning fire with practiced precision. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. As his squad was slowly whittled down, Reacher caught a glimpse of Cravon through a window high above. The traitorous general's face was split in a triumphant grin. Then Reacher saw it, a massive, ominous device behind Cravon. His blood ran cold as he realized the true nature of the threat they faced. Fall back, he roared to his remaining teammates. It's a trap. He's got a— His words were cut off as a stun blast caught him squarely in the chest. As consciousness faded, Reacher's last thought was of the superweapon looming over them all, and the devastating consequences of his failure. Reacher's eyes snapped open, his mind still reeling from the stun blast. He found himself in a stark, sterile cell, the air heavy with the scent of ozone and disinfectant. As his vision cleared, he saw General Cravon standing on the other side of an energy barrier, a smug grin plastered across his face. I must thank you, Sergeant, Cravon said, his voice dripping with false cordiality. Your ill-fated rescue attempt provided the perfect test for my new defenses. Reacher's muscles tensed, ready to spring into action, but the energy field crackled warningly. Cravon chuckled, clearly enjoying the human's frustration. Oh, don't bother, he said, waving a dismissive hand. That field would reduce you to atoms before you could blink. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my benefactor. As Cravon turned to leave, Reacher caught a glimpse of something through the open door, a massive device pulsing with an otherworldly energy. His blood ran cold as he realized the implications. Back on the Ocampan homeworld, Commander Noah Morgan stood atop a half-rebuilt tower, surveying the devastation below. The air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of burnt metal. Workers scurried about like ants, clearing rubble and erecting temporary shelters. A familiar voice pulled him from his thoughts. Commander, we have a situation. Morgan turned to see Admiral Marcus Briggs, newly appointed as regent, his face etched with concern. What is it, Marcus? Our intelligence operatives on Carrick have made a disturbing discovery, Briggs said, handing Morgan a data pad. It seems Cravon wasn't working alone. Morgan's eyes widened as he scanned the report. The Overseer? Who or what is that? Before Briggs could respond, Princess Arya joined them, her normally immaculate appearance marred by smudges of dirt and soot. It's worse than we thought, she said, her voice tight with tension. The Overseer isn't just Cravon's ally. It's an ancient AI, the last remnant of a long-extinct civilization. Morgan's mind raced, piecing together the implications. And now it's set its sights on us. Arya nodded grimly. Our victory over the Ulians caught its attention. It sees humanity as a potential asset, or a threat to be eliminated. The comm unit on Morgan's wrist chirped urgently. He activated it, and Hail Mary's voice filled the air, tense and hurried. "Commander, we've tracked the Overseer to its homeworld. It's incredible. An entire planet of machines, more advanced than anything we've ever seen. But there's more. They're building something big." Morgan exchanged worried glances with Briggs and Arya. "What kind of something, Hail Mary?" There was a pause, filled only with the sound of distant explosions. When Hail Mary spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "A weapon, sir. A weapon that could rewrite the laws of physics itself." The implications hit Morgan like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to respond, but a burst of static cut him off. "We've been spotted!" Hail Mary's voice crackled through the comm. "Attempting to sabotage the construct, but—" Her words dissolved into a cacophony of weapons fire and screams before the signal went dead. Morgan's fists clenched at his sides. He turned to Briggs and Arya, his eyes hard with persistence. "We need to move fast, gather every ship we can muster, human and Ocampan alike. If we don't stop this thing now, there might not be a galaxy left to save." As they hurried to put the plan into action, Morgan couldn't shake the feeling that they were hurtling towards a confrontation that would decide the fate of not just their civilizations, but of reality itself. Commander Noah Morgan's eyes blazed with willpower as he addressed the assembled fleet. Human warships loomed alongside sleek Ocampan vessels, an unlikely alliance forged in the crucible of necessity. "This is it," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. "The Overseer's construct threatens everything we hold dear. We end this. Now." Admiral Marcus Briggs nodded grimly, the lines on his face etched deeper than ever. "All ships prepare for warp jump on my mark." The fleet surged forward, reality bending around them as they hurtled towards their target. As they emerged from warp, a collective gasp echoed across comm channels. Before them loomed a nightmarish armada. Alien ships of countless designs moved in perfect, inhuman synchronicity. At their center hung the Overseer's construct, a massive structure that pulsed with otherworldly energy. "By the stars," someone whispered. Morgan's tactical display lit up with incoming fire. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked. "All ships, engage according to Plan Delta." The Allied fleet scattered, desperately trying to avoid the onslaught. Morgan's ships shuddered as a near miss grazed their shields. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "those are Ullian ships mixed in with the enemy force." Morgan's expression resolute as he recognized the repurposed vessels of Warlord Zyrax's fleet. "The Overseers assimilated them," he growled. "Doesn't matter. Push forward." Admiral Briggs's voice crackled over the comm. "Morgan, we're not going to break through their lines. I'm taking the spearhead on a run at the construct's core." "Marcus, no!" Morgan protested, but Briggs had already cut the channel. The Regent's ship and its escorts accelerated, plunging into the heart of the enemy formation. Enemy fire converged on them, tearing through shields and hull plating. Morgan watched in horror as the spearhead disintegrated, but not before unleashing a barrage of specialized torpedoes. The construct's outer defenses flickered, a momentary weakness. "All ships," Morgan commanded, "concentrate fire on that breach." As the battle raged, Princess Aria's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, I'm taking a squadron to rescue Hail Mary. Cover us!" Morgan wanted to protest, to order her back to safety, but he knew better. "Acknowledged, Princess. May the stars guide you." Arya's dreadnought and its fighter escort dove towards the construct, weaving through debris and enemy fire. Morgan redeployed his forces to draw attention away from her approach, but the cost was steep. Ship after ship winked out of existence on his tactical display. The comm channels filled with the screams of the dying and the desperate pleas of crews venting atmosphere. Just as Morgan was about to order a retreat, alarms blared across his bridge. The construct's core was powering up, reality itself seeming to warp around it. "Sir," his science officer shouted, "energy readings are off the charts. If that thing fires—" A blinding flash erupted from the construct's heart. Morgan shielded his eyes, certain that this was the end. But instead of oblivion, he heard cheers erupt across the comm channels. Opening his eyes, he saw the impossible. The Overseer's armada turning on itself, ships firing indiscriminately. "What in the name of—" Morgan began, but then he understood. "Hail Mary," he breathed. The hybrid had interfaced with the construct, seizing control of the Overseer's forces. But even as hope surged through Morgan, he saw the construct's core begin to pulse with terrifying intensity. "All ships, fall back," he ordered. "It's going to—" A cosmic rift tore open, reality shredding at its edges. But instead of expanding, it began to collapse in on itself, taking the construct and the remains of the Overseer's fleet with it. As the rift winked out of existence, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. The battered remnants of the Allied fleet drifted amidst the wreckage of friend and foe alike. Morgan slumped in his chair, the adrenaline draining from his system. They had won, but at what cost? His eyes roamed over the casualty reports, each name a knife in his heart. A priority message flashed on his screen. It was from Princess Arya, her face streaked with tears but her voice steady. "Commander," she said, "it's over, but Hail Mary, she's gone." Morgan closed his eyes, allowing himself a moment of grief for the hybrid who had saved them all. When he opened them again, he saw the Ocampan homeworld on his view screen, scarred but still standing. As they limped back to the planet, Morgan knew that the real work was just beginning, rebuilding, healing, forging a true alliance between their peoples. He straightened his uniform, pushing aside his exhaustion. There would be time for rest later. For now, a new chapter in their shared history awaited.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.